Welcome to the 8th lunchtime session. I hope your lunch isn't burning on the stove. I'm Andrew Vermesh, and this is about using your pessimism productively. We often ignore our inner pessimist, or sometimes ignore our colleagues. The new launch or the new project's too exciting and we're smart enough to fix any small glitches that might turn up. Even KT relegates the business of managing risk to chapter 6. Now, these are the other modules, and if you've missed any, they're recorded and available, and do pass them on to friends who might want to sharpen their problem-solving toolkit. Perhaps not as well liked as a present of a bottle of nice wine, but will last longer and will not give you a sore head. Now to today's topic. Some of you like Homer Simpson, and you'll be familiar with that moment when something goes wrong and you get that sinking feeling that you really knew and could have prevented it. Now, let's get a bit more cheerful. Imagine a life where you spot many more problems as they approach in the distance, and you're ready and waiting for them with a zapper. Nice, isn't it? What could possibly go wrong? This is the best of all questions. Ask it often, and listen to the answers. Nothing can go wrong, trust me, is the most dangerous response and to be ignored at all times. Now, this is kind of an odd title for a slide, given what's underneath. But I'm going to ask you a question at this point and get you to vote on it. How much of the trouble you experience at work do you believe is really, hand on heart, predictable and avoidable? Now, I think the thing that we have to recognize, however optimistic we are as individuals, however good our team, however great our skills, is stuff goes wrong, and we should not pretend otherwise. Some things absolutely are not predictable, really not, but many are if we look. And this is why we're going to talk about pessimism and how we value your pessimists less. We've got a half and half going on in our poll at the moment. Most of it, very little, and nothing in the middle. Most of it's winning out at the moment. And let's see where it gets to at the end. Interesting poll. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we all know we could predict and prevent, but we don't for a number of very good reasons. Part of those reasons are that it's not enough to say that'll never work. People need to actually explain what might cause the disaster and what extra preventive ideas make sense. The picture here is John Laurie, late actor, most famous for the television comedy Dad's Army. I'd encourage you to look at his other work. His movie career ran from 1930 to 1979, and that's the catchphrase. We're all doomed. This is Scotsman. So, now we don't want to take a pessimistic view of everything. Life could be utterly miserable. All the same, a careful eye over upcoming projects, plans, and especially critical assets or processes is always valuable. Understanding what could go wrong and why is the key to avoiding many, many stressful situations. And let's now talk about practical pessimism. So every activity has risks, some more than others. And not every part of an activity has the same risk profile, so you'll want to break it down into its components. So here's a model. Choose a focus for your attention and then list the risks. This is plural, there may be several. Then for each risk, you might list the potential causes. And then once you know those, you could do something to prevent the occurrence. And even if you can't, how would you minimize the impact? So that's an important way to start looking at risk quickly and practically and productively. Let's now take a look at an example here. Now, when I was younger, I was a hammer thrower, county level, just below national champion level, but I never got to represent the country, and that's because I wasn't good enough. But this isn't me. This is Christian Parch of Hungary, Olympic gold medal winner in London 2012. Hammer throwing, as you can see from the picture, and maybe you've seen it on the TV, is inherently very dangerous. There are huge numbers of things that can go wrong and cause injury either to the thrower or the spectators. The point here is that to be effective, your pessimism has to focus on a specific activity and on a significant part of that activity. And one significant part of hammer throwing is when the hammer is released out into the big wide world and should be landing in the throwing area. You can just see in the picture the two white lines spreading out, and that's the approved throwing area. So what could go wrong? The hammer hits somebody, as it does from time to time. Why does that go wrong? Well, people go into the throwing area. Athletes are not the most disciplined individuals at the best of times, and they will wander across the field from one side to the other willy-nilly if you let them. What can prevent that? Safety markers outside the white lines to prevent them straying. But if they insist on straying, lots of marshals to keep those people out. And just in case they do get hit by hammer, I did actually hit one guy with a hammer once, broke his ankle, I'm afraid. There needs to be medical support at the track, not down the road to the hospital, at the track, so that people can get treatment very promptly. He did, by the way, my victim did get treated very promptly and did make a full recovery. He wasn't terribly badly hurt. So let's move forward into the usual exercise. There's a case study in the attachments. If you have a look into the attachments now, you'll see that the first of those attachments is the Module 8 case study. If you have a quick look at that and use that model to map out what you think some of the risks might be to the key processes. This is called life on Mars. So let's use the model to map out what you think the risk profile is of some of the key processes of the Mars mission. And please do send in your contributions using the questions from audience function. And if you're watching this afterwards, as ever, please have a go yourself. Do have a look at some practical pessimism, go through the case study, and come up with some creative thinking to think about the risks that could be affecting the air supply here. What could go wrong with all of that? If you want to increase your scope and focus on some different activity. Maybe you want to plan your own trip to Mars if you're young enough to consider going on one of those Mars missions and you have the necessary aeronautical qualifications. You might use this as a way of thinking about whether you're able to do it. We've got nothing as yet, but I'm sure it'll come in a minute. Meanwhile, we'll skip forward to looking at what the potential answers would be for this case study. So when we talk about atmosphere production, we could choose the focus to look at keep the solar panels running. You may have chosen piping, and that's fine. I'm looking forward to seeing your contributions. Now, what can go wrong with keeping the solar panels running? Well, impact from small particles coming in from space, tiny meteorites. Why? Because the solar panels are exposed. What could we do to prevent that? Maybe, given that this is a slightly futuristic and made-up case study, we can put a force field over the panels. And what would we do if we get excessive damage? Well, we absolutely have. All right, there we go. We've got some pipe integrity from groundwater risk. Freezing a pipe cause, lack of seismic activity, prevention, trace heating from solar panels. Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. Trace heating from solar panels, minimize impact, pipes withstand expansions to prevent rupture. Some member of the audience here has done FMEA, or failure mode effect analysis, before. And this is not different. This is a simpler version of the same thing. So all risk assessment will look something like this, but we're trying to present for you the most easy and practical way to get it done for your own environment, indeed for any environment. So thank you very much for that contribution. And good stock of spare parts is part of our work together. Got any more coming in from the audience? Perhaps not yet so far. Right, that's fine. Let's move forward then. We have lots of things for you to do, and one of those is a little bit of homework. Now, you don't have to do this, but I strongly recommend you do. Next week could be a reduced stress week for all of you. So have a look at the book chapter 6. It's in the attachments tab. You can pick that up now. Have a look at your current projects and processes. Whatever you're going to do next week, you're going to do an upgrade to a system, you're going to launch a new product, you're going to modify a process ready for end of lockdown. Pick one of the more important, pick a specific process step or deliverable that you are working on right now, and then go to your local pessimist and ask him or her to tell you what could go wrong with that particular thing. That might be a subject matter expert, it might be somebody else. But whoever it is, listen to their answers, take them seriously, and think about which of those potential problems or risks might really happen to you and which you need to prevent, and have a go at that. And do, as always, let me know where you get to with that. You can further enhance your skills in this area with e-learning at this URL. You can pick that up after the event in the attachments. It's in the slide deck, which is available to you. And of course, you can find all kinds of virtual and later on in the year, hopefully, physical classes from KT in the usual spot. Do always get in touch with me either via LinkedIn or at Twitter, or indeed directly by email if you want, and tell me how you're getting on with preventing a risk. I'd be really fascinated with what you've spotted coming over the hill at you and what you've been able to do to prevent that from going wrong. But for now, I hope we've done this quickly enough to stop your lunch burning on the stove and you really do enjoy it. Thanks everyone for coming today.